Bernardo, hey, congratulations on the new documentary, The Infinite Race.
Thanks so much. Yeah, thanks so much for having this conversation, and thank you for the kind words about the documentary.
Hey, not a problem. So let's start off with the easy question. What initiated you to make this documentary? Because it's a very fascinating story.
So, I've been for a long time. I was interested in making, inspired by making a film about running. And so I was interested in how I could do a running film. And then I read this extraordinary article that came out in the Texas Monthly a couple of years ago by a colleague named Brian Goldberg, who basically looked at how Tarahumara indigenous runners in northern Mexico had been caught up and conscripted by cartels, basically to ferry drugs into the U.S. And I thought, that basically sparked a collaboration with Ryan, and that's how we basically started on this path of making this film.
So when did you really started the process of your documentary? Because obviously it included the 2015 ultra marathon incident, but you had to start before that. And when did it end for your process production?
So we actually started this project at the end of 2018 and beginning of 2019. And the kind of first big thing that we filmed the 2019 ultra marathon that happens in Urique, Chihuahua every year. And that's this 50-mile race through, it's a grueling race through the basin of the Copper Canyon and then up into this very difficult terrain. So I went with a crew, an experienced crew that has, a lot of experience working in this part of Mexico. We basically filmed the entire race. And as we began doing our research, we began unearthing archival footage of the 2015 race and these other periods that you're talking about. And of course, all of this had been, the race had grown mainly because of the popularity of this bestseller, Born to Run, which came out about a decade ago. And that book attracted a lot of international runners, but also kind of created some tension there. With some of the local Tarahumara runners who felt like, these outsiders are coming in and coming out. They're not really leaving us much, they just come in when it's convenient for them. And so that was kind of one of the tensions we wanted to explore in the film as well.
Was it difficult to track down these archival footages and get permission for them?
I mean, that's a big part of what I love about documentary work is the investigation and the tracking down of footage. I actually think it's getting harder and harder to do this well. The more popular these documentary series are becoming, I think the savvier owners of material are becoming, and for good reason. It used to be, when I first started that, you could go into a physical library and look at reels and footage, and people didn't really think about this stuff as necessarily think about this as kind of valuable material. And as time has gone on, it's, you have, I think people charging more and more for this material. If you look at a series like The Last Dance, another big ESPN project, you've got hours and hours of just this extraordinary material. In our case, the big challenge was finding runners who either had vlogged or recorded their experiences or who had photographs, and that was the kind of tricky part for us. It's not like we could go to an NBA or like an MLB or one of these places and track down the footage. We had to track down individuals, but I work with a great team, and we were able to find some pretty dramatic footage that you see in the film, specifically of the 2015 race, which was disrupted by cartel violence, by a shootout and some killings, unfortunately. And that, very dramatic event is kind of documented from multiple perspectives and from many different sources of footage in the film.
What about your interview subjects that you actually decided? How did you decide on who to include, and how did you track them down after all these years?
I'm really interested in documentaries or stories where we see the events and the story from multiple perspectives. And so for me, it was important to get to really highlight the Tarahumara, or they call themselves the Raramuri. They're, the runners and activists from that community, to really give them a platform. Simply because I feel like other projects that have focused on the community have maybe relied on outside experts. So I really kind of want to just people from the community to explain information to us. The other kind of piece is I wanted, this is a story about a clash of cultures. And so I just wanted to get as much nuance as possible from the international runners, the outside runners. And that's basically what you get in the film. It's kind of multiple perspectives. There is this group of runners, these international runners that run the race every year. They call themselves the Mas Locos, or the kind of crazy ones. And, I interviewed a few of them, or people affiliated with them, to kind of tell that story as well. And I think for me, the goal is to, for the viewer to kind of metaphorically be in the shoes, or the sandals of each person, to try to see the full picture, how complicated the situation we discussed in the film was.
Was it difficult to convince the interview subjects to participate in your film? Because, 2015 was a pretty controversial cancellation.
Yeah, for the runners, it was definitely a very controversial event. And I think there's even been some blowback now. I think people are nervous about the film and this story dredging up these events again. But I do feel like it's really important to do these kind of deep dive interviews where you really genuinely give the people a chance to air their full perspective. And I feel like that actually makes for a dramatic story, but it also makes for an accurate story, a journalistically responsible story. And that was the goal with this film.
Now, one of the things you highlighted in this documentary was Cabello Blanco, and so on. What was the impression that you actually got? Did you think that was a blessing or a curse that he brought onto, the community?
Yeah, I think that the very question you're asking is kind of at the heart of the film. And I think we show how, I think there's another version of this film that would have just been just a portrait of him. And in fact, there is another documentary that's just about Micah True, whose nickname was Cabello Blanco. He was, a runner from the US, runner and athlete. I think he'd been a boxer earlier in his career as well, who found a kind of refuge in the Copper Canyon among the Tarahumara, and eventually organized this race. And the goal of that race was to give back to the community. Of course, the race grew in popularity, and it got a kind of accelerated push when the book Born to Run came out a decade ago, and that attracted a lot of international runners. Micah True, this Cabello Blanco figure, he died in 2012. And afterwards, a group of runners who'd been affiliated with him kind of took over the race, and they were the ones in charge in 2015 when violence broke out and disrupted the race, which is the event that we talk about in the film. But I think in terms of his legacy, and I think he started with obviously very good intention, and I think according to the people we interview in the film, did some serious good. I think like with anything in life, you can't control everything. You can't control things that you create sometimes. And I think that, some of the runners question whether or not it's something that's doing good. At the same time, the event continues every year. It brings runners from all over the world to participate in this kind of cultural exchange and race with Tarahumara runners. And that is, I think that's a special thing. It's a unique thing. And, again, this is these are sporting events that not a lot of people know about. So I think one thing that's kind of unique about the film is that we were able to highlight this kind of unique racing event.
Admittingly, did you try the ultra marathon, or did you even try to run barefoot or with sandals?
I am not much of a runner. I like being behind the camera, and I like being looking through the monitor. I did run for stretches, nowhere near the 50 miles or the 80 kilometers that the runners do every year in hardcore terrain. I mean, just getting into some of the locations that we filmed in required hiking and running at parts. And thankfully, I have a younger crew that's much better shape than I am.
Excellent. Well, let me wrap it up with one more question with you, Bernardo. When people actually watch this documentary for ESPN's 30 for 30, what is the one most important lesson you hope that they would take away from watching your film?
I mean, I think I'm not big on messages. I feel like my goal as a filmmaker is to create an experience for the viewer. And I think this is a film that kind of puts you in a world that few people have been in. Look, I've been covering Mexico for over a decade. I've filmed in many different locations, and I haven't seen a lot of material about this area and about some of these running traditions. So I think more than anything, it's a look at a tradition of running among a group that's been doing this since before the Spanish conquest, throughout history, through surviving cartels, outsiders, any manner of people. And I think there's something kind of unique in the kind of resilience and the history of resistance in this community. And I think that's what the film gives the viewer. It's a look at something that a lot of us may not get to experience, but you do get to experience it through this film.
Absolutely. It's a great film. Hey, thank you very much, Bernardo, for speaking with us. And once again, congratulations for the Infinite Race.
Thank you so much.